Then, what's this? I put one of the photos I got from the private investigator on the table.
This is Myra, and she suddenly got sick and there was nothing I could do about it. So we went into a hotel. We didn't do anything here.
Then, what's this? I took out the second photo as I said this.
For this one, I got sick, and...
Then what about this one? Without pausing, I take out the third picture.
This is,
My name is Victoria, and I am 35 years old. I am currently the owner and manager of a certain restaurant. It started out as a small restaurant, and after 10 years, it has grown to become one of the most popular restaurants, and now it has about 15 employees. I married my husband Ted a year ago. My husband, who is 3 years older than me, was originally one of my store's regular customers. My first impression of him was that he's a bastard who talks without thinking and gets easily carried away. Later, this first impression would prove to be true, but I had no way of thinking that at the time. My husband visited the restaurant many times, and each time he would try to talk to me. Moreover, he always came to the restaurant just before the last order. This is also the time of the day when I would naturally have more time for conversation if he spoke to me.
You're always working alone until the end. Thanks for your hard work.
I fell in love with these words. It even made me forget about my initial impression of him. To begin with, I had stayed away from love since I was traumatized by my ex-boyfriend's affair. I was afraid of getting hurt again. When my husband asked me to go out with him, and I told him about my past trauma, he was very upset.
I can't believe he would do that to you, Victoria. There is nothing wrong with you. You don't have to drag out that past. I would never let you feel that way, Victoria.
I was so moved by his words that I started dating him. However, despite my worries I had of him, my relationship with my husband was going well. I was running a restaurant, so I didn't have much time for dates. But on the days when I couldn't see him, he would come to my restaurant to eat as a customer. I thought my husband was such a kind man and became more and more infatuated with him. When my husband asked me to marry him a year ago, I was delighted and accepted his proposal. I was happy every day. But that happiness slowly began to crumble after 6 months as a newlywed. 6 months into our new marriage, my husband quit his job and returned home. He resigned suddenly one day without even telling me about it beforehand. And he started to say it all on his own while I had no option to even argue about it.
I quit my job to help out at the restaurant.
What? No, my current employees are enough.
That's not true, is it? If I come in as an accountant, Victoria, you can focus in the kitchen, right?
No, I've asked my accountant to take care of the store, so that's not a problem.
Then why don't you fire your accountant and I'll do the accounting?
I've known my accountant since we opened the shop, so he understands what I need to do, and I have no intention of terminating our contract.
What? Even though I'm here?
I was pretty irritated at this point. I loved my husband, but I had no intention of having him involved in the store. My husband had his own work, and I never thought he would get involved with my store, business-wise. He was a salesman, not an accountant. There was no way my husband, who had no expertise in such a field, would be able to handle the accounting field. Anyway, my store will be fine, so why don't you find a new job?
Oh, well, I'll work in the kitchen first then.
Huh? What do you mean the kitchen first then? I've been telling you from the beginning, right? I don't need your help. That tone makes it sound like you're looking down on my shop.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was saying things without thinking, you know. I'm really sorry. I just thought it would be wonderful if Victoria and I could become a couple and run a restaurant together. I'm really sorry.
No, that's not possible. In the end, I forcefully ended the discussion that day. However, 2 weeks after this, he was working in the kitchen because the girl who was in charge of the kitchen broke her leg and couldn't work. She's also a sommelier and was a really important employee for my restaurant. The doctor's diagnosis that she got was she needed 3 months of recovery. When my husband found out, he took the opportunity to tell me that he would fill in for her. Well, I guess it's better than being unemployed at least. I discussed this with my employees, but they all knew my husband from long ago. They willingly agreed to do so. I agreed to let my husband work in my store on the condition that when the sommelier employee returned to work, he would properly look for a new job of his own. And my husband worked surprisingly well. Perhaps it was because he was a salesman, but he was well received by customers. The regular customers would say, "So you and your husband are finally going to run the business together, huh?" And hearing that, I was thinking to myself that maybe this isn't so bad after all. However, my optimism was quickly shattered. That day was my first day off in 5 days. However, it was the day my accountant was coming over to our place, so I headed to the store to gather the necessary documents. As I entered the store through the back door, an employee hastily looked at me. "Good work." "What? What's wrong?"
Owner, Ted is...
Ted is what?
Please, come here for a minute.
I headed for the hall as the employee told me to. Then, I was shocked. Despite the fact that the restaurant was on a lunch break, a woman whom I've never seen before was enjoying her food in our kitchen. And next to her is my husband, who looks like he's getting carried away. So, I walked up to them. "Good work." My husband turned around surprisingly.
Victoria? Why? You're off today, right?
"Yes, but my accountant is coming over." "Who's this?" "Hi, I'm Myra."
Myra is a colleague of mine from the company I used to work at. She just happened to come by the store today, and I was on my lunch break, but she came all the way here to see me, so, you know, I couldn't just leave her there, could I?
"Do you always do this?"
No way, just this once. Right? Myra, right?
I guess so. I see. Thank you for always taking care of my husband. Yes, I do. Well then, please take your time. Saying that, I went back into the other room.
This isn't his first time, owner. Whenever you're on your off.
Yes, that's what I thought. Does that girl always come?
This is the 3rd time she came here.
Thanks for telling me. Judging from Ted being surprised like that, I'm sure Myra wasn't just his colleague. I finished my work with the accountant and started looking for an investigating agency. However, I couldn't find the right one. I searched in between jobs, but none of them seemed to really hit me well. In the meantime, he was probably being with Myra, getting carried away. As I thought that, I got more and more irritated. In the midst of all this, I went on a business trip with the chef in search of a new contract farmer. It was a one-day trip, but we returned home around 9 p.m. I was probably too tired to say I'm home, so I went inside the house without saying a word. Then, I heard some sound. It sounded like my husband was talking to someone on the phone.
I know. Just wait a little longer. I need to be trusted in the kitchen now. Yeah, maybe in a month it'll be fine. It's okay. I'll make it work. Once I'm in accounting, it's all ours. We can spend all the money we want.
Ted is probably talking to Myra on the phone. The reason my husband wanted to do accounting more than necessary was because of embezzlement, huh? What a bastard. This is where my affection for him completely dries out. The only option I have now is to divorce him. Then I made an appointment with the investigation agency, and to my surprise, the president of that agency was a regular customer at my store. So I shamelessly exposed everything to him. Then, with a mysterious look on his face, he agreed to accept my request. The investigation period was 1 week. My husband, who knew nothing about it, never doubted anything was going to happen to him. He is watching TV while humming in front of me. I wish I could do something to him so that he can't hum. My heart was just filled with anger. A week later, the investigation report came back. The result was shockingly what I had thought. I definitely needed to punish Ted for what he has done to me. I decided to take a revenge on him 3 days later on a regular holiday. I invited all the people involved to the store that day. I told my husband that we were going to discuss a new menu at the store. My stupid, simple-minded husband must think he is one of the core members of this store. I could also see that he is in a good mood. Yes, you are the star of the show today. We arrived at the restaurant and waited for the other people to come. The first person to appear was my lawyer I had hired.
Is he the contract farmer?
How stupid can he be? Can't he see how formally dressed my lawyer is with his briefcase? This is my lawyer.
Huh?
As my husband looked confused, another person came in.
What? Mom?
What is it? Calling me out of the blue like this?
Well, let's talk about Victoria's request right away. Victoria demands a divorce from her husband. Huh?
Huh? Ted and his mother, Wendy, overlaps each other.
What do you mean?
You're having an affair, aren't you?
No, I'm not. Of course not.
Then what's this? I put one of the photos I got from the private investigator on the table.
This is Myra, and she suddenly got sick and there was nothing I could do about it. So we went into a hotel. We didn't do anything here.
Then, what's this? I took out the second photo as I said this.
For this one, I got sick and...
Then what about this one? Without pausing, I take out the third picture.
This is,
Oh, that's enough. You don't like this woman, do you? Then why don't you just get a divorce? You don't need a woman like that, who eats all the money away. What? What do you mean about me eating all the money away? Victoria, you approached my son Ted for his money, didn't you? I knew that. This store, that house, the car, everything. Ted is working so hard to make up for the deficit, yet you want to divorce him and take his share of the property, right? You're a despicable woman. Excuse me? What the hell is she saying? Since you're like that, that's why he cheats on you. He can't be helped. I'm for the divorce, but I can't give you anything. From now on, I'll take care of the store, the house, the car, and everything that belonged to you. You will be on your own. I look at my husband. My husband looks away in an obvious way. I see. Oh, well, I guess you're not needed as his wife now. Myra came in through the door. I heard everything from outside, but if it all belongs to Ted, then there's no problem, right? Even if Victoria finds out about our affair.
Myra, let's
see. Let me just organize everything right now. First of all, Wendy, this store, that house, and the car, those three are all my properties. Huh? This store is the one I have been working on for the past 10 years. I am the owner. In other words, I manage this shop. I have owned the house and the cars since before I got married to Ted. Therefore, nothing goes to you. Wait, what do you mean? Don't you understand? It means that your own son lied to you. Right, Ted?
I guess I misunderstood a little.
Huh? You said you were going to get the money soon.
Hey, Myra, just get the hint, will you?
No, I know. You wanted to get into accounting because you wanted to embezzle the store's money, right? You've got to be kidding me, seriously. And just in time, the next two visitors arrived.
Jane, why?
What in the world is this?
And you too, Chloe, why?
Welcome. I'm Ted's wife. Wife? Wife? The two of them widen their eyes and won't move. Ted, you should just give up now. You can't fool them no matter how you try. I have all the data. Then my husband bursted out crying.
I'm sorry.
Seeing my husband like that, my mother-in-law got up and walked out. My mother-in-law was kind to me before we got married, but after we got married, she suddenly became cold. She must have believed Ted's lies as they were. Well, now is not the time to be worrying about Wendy who left. I have to crush my husband. He's crying even though he did everything to himself. What a pathetic scumbag. Jane and Chloe immediately apologized to me. Neither of them knew that Ted was completely married. I had also already investigated that. I apologized to them that my husband was sorry and promised to cooperate with them in sanctioning him at a later date, and had the two go home. And now it was Myra who trembled with anger. Ted, what do you mean by all of this? You said you wanted to divorce your wife. You said you would marry me if you divorced your wife. And who were those women just now? Ted then slowly looked up.
There's no way I'd do that for you. Myra, you and the girls from earlier on were there so that I could just have fun and play around. I don't want to marry a stupid girl anyways. I want a really smart girl for my wife.
Excuse me? What are you talking about? You were complaining about your wife a lot. Did you know that, Victoria? We've been dating since before you married Ted.
That's why I said you're really stupid. You're just a tool for me. Nothing more.
You're terrible. Bang. My full swing hit my husband clean on his left cheek. What are you talking about, disrespecting a woman like that? A tool? You've got to be kidding me. Then what are you? What is the point of you being there, huh? You're no more than a tool. Then I came back to my senses. I punched him in front of my lawyer. Quickly, I looked at my lawyer's face, and at that moment, my lawyer turned his face away. Thank you so much for pretending to not see it, even though you saw it.
Everyone, please calm down. We will inform you of the details of the divorce procedure and alimony in a sealed envelope at a later date.
Hearing this, Ted looked relieved at my lawyer's words. I guess he thought that if he could somehow get through this, he could somehow fool me with being flirty with me. So now he's getting carried away, thinking he could go home with me. No, you can't go home with me, okay? Please go back to Myra's place or wherever you like.
The only one I love is you, Victoria. That's why I'm going home with you.
Oh well, do as you please. Hearing this, my husband followed me back home quickly. On the way home, we passed by a neighborhood store and my husband said,
That's right, I'm going to buy your favorite sweets.
And went inside the store. Surely, under normal circumstances, I would be really pleased. However, I am in no state of mind to be fooled by that right now. I went straight home and locked the door. Then when my husband came home 5 minutes later, he couldn't enter the house. And that's because I changed the locks on the door. He seemed to ring the doorbell several times, but I completely ignored all of them. My husband persisted for an hour, but then he disappeared somewhere. About 6 months later, the divorce was finalized. My ex-husband had stubbornly continued to refuse the divorce, but he sank to his knees when my lawyer said, If you divorce in court, a judicial divorce will be entered in your family name, and signed the papers without hesitation. My ex-husband was kicked out of the house without a job and had to rely on his parents for support. And I heard that the two, Jane and Chloe, who had been having an affair without knowing that Ted was married, filed a claim for alimony against him, and Ted's mom, Wendy, had paid the amount in the end. To my surprise, Myra seriously loved Ted, and she then asked him to marry her because she would support him. However, Ted stubbornly refused her proposal. I heard that Myra was so persistent that he violently attacked her and was caught red-handed. Maybe Myra was just an honest, pure girl. She just fell right into Ted's trap. Well, I was also one of them too, so I can't really say anything. By that time, the sommelier who was hospitalized had returned to the restaurant, and the restaurant was able to return to normal operation. But I have had enough of romance. I'm getting older and stronger, and this time it was not that traumatic. In fact, it won't be long before I can talk about what all happened as a funny story. I will continue to spend my time here, taking good care of my store with my employees and my customers. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.
I'll be back tomorrow. Get the hot water ready in the bath.
This is what my husband, who disappeared 3 years ago, told me when he called me for the first time in a long time. Without warning, he left me the divorce papers and disappeared with his mistress. How much do you think I was hurt that day 3 years ago? I can't believe the nerve of my husband to contact me with impunity. But I am different from that time. I get it. Stifling my anger, I calmly replied and hung up the phone. I can't wait to see what my husband will look like when he gets home. I hope he'll feel the same way I did then. Suck it up. I am Mary, 30 years old, and I have an office job. I met my husband Dean through a social networking site. It all started when I found out on there that Dean was hosting a meetup for fans of my favorite band, and I contacted him. The band was not that famous, and all the people around me had never even heard of them. I had always attended gigs alone and had been looking for someone to talk to. The place where the meetup was to be held was close to my house, so I contacted him on the spur of the moment. Dean returned my message very politely and even gave me directions to the location of the meetup. Dean, the moderator on the day of the meetup, was attentive to all participants and kept the place lively. I was also nervous to attend the event, but thanks to Dean, I was able to enjoy talking with many people. I parted ways at the station with the people I met that day, and we are still good friends. But at the time, Dean and I were the only ones who took the same direction of the train. As we talked, it became clear that Dean was the same age as me, and we had a lot in common. Not only in terms of bands we liked, but also in terms of the music and radio we usually listened to, and the conversation became quite lively. I had never met anyone with such good taste, and I think I was already in love with Dean from this point on. We agreed to meet at the next gig, and I got off the train first as we arrived at the nearest station. I went home and messaged Dean to thank him, and he politely replied again. After that, we had endless conversations and sent messages to each other every day. I had been looking forward to Dean's reply for some time. A month later at a concert, Dean confessed his feelings to me and we decided to go out. I thought it must be my one-sided love, so when he confessed, my face turned red with surprise and happiness. Dean was laughing at me. Every day that I was dating Dean was nothing but happiness. Dean is a very considerate person who would never say anything that would hurt me. I can't tell you how many times he made me cry with surprises because his first priority was to make me happy. I also felt I could do anything for Dean. After a year of dating, we decided to get married, and his proposal came as a surprise. While dining at a restaurant, he suddenly handed me a large bouquet of flowers. And when I accepted the proposal, our mutual friends appeared from the back to congratulate me. I was so happy, I couldn't stop crying. After marriage, Dean and I continued to spend time together as lovers as if nothing had changed. Dean is actively involved in housework despite his busy work schedule and celebrates wedding anniversaries and birthdays in a big way. I was so glad I married this man. I was even a little scared that I should be this happy. However, after 2 years of marriage, Dean gradually began to act strangely. He had always been a busy man at work, but now he had to work overtime and on holidays and travel more than ever. On the worst days when I woke up, he was already gone, and there were days when he would come home in the middle of the night, and we hardly saw each other, even though we lived together. I had been up all night waiting for the band's album to come out so I could listen to it with Dean, but he never came home, and before I knew it, I had fallen asleep on the couch. He didn't have a lot of days off, so I was afraid that he would get sick. Why don't you ask the company for some time off? I had never spoken to Dean about his work before, but once, when he came home late at night because I was worried about his health, I said that to him without thinking much about it.
A woman like you shouldn't talk when it comes to my job.
The words that came back from Dean were quite cold. This was the first time Dean had ever spoken to me so coldly. Is he too busy at work and stressed out? Dean has since become a different person.
Why didn't you have breakfast ready?
I once woke up one day to Dean's voice. I thought I had slept too late because it was my day off from work, so I jumped up and looked at the clock, but it was only 5 in the morning.
You know, I've been meaning to tell you this for a long time, but seriously, you are a zero when it comes to being a wife.
When I went to the living room, Dean spat that at me and went to work. How unreasonable of him to be angry at me for not having breakfast ready at 5 in the morning. More importantly, I had never dreamed that Dean had thought of such a thing. I also work, and certainly the housework will not be perfect. I was so shocked that I spaced out for a while. Maybe I shouldn't be so busy at work. I knew I would have to work harder than ever at housework and wait for Dean to settle down at work until he was as good as he was when we first got married. I am sure that one day he will return to his former gentle self. I believed that and did everything I could to make the house a peaceful home for Dean when he returned. But no matter what I did, Dean always gave me the cold shoulder. So I tried my best even though I felt like my heart was about to break. One day, while checking Dean's pockets to take his suits to the cleaners, I found a pair of women's earrings. Obviously, it is not mine. The moment I saw the earrings, I was convinced that all of Dean's previous actions had been a lie. He's not busy at work, he's meeting with his affair partner. That's why he's not at home at all. I felt ridiculous and very miserable at the same time for having cared about Dean so much. I stayed up that day waiting for Dean to come home. When Dean came home in the morning, I confronted him with the earrings. Whose earrings are these? It was in your suit pocket. It is not good to get angry from the beginning and start fighting, so I asked in a calm tone of voice, wanting to discuss the matter properly. Maybe I was thinking too well that Dean would panic and apologize.
Oh, it's my girlfriend's earrings. Thank you. I'll give it back tomorrow.
Dean was unfazed and tried to take the earrings. I was surprised at Dean's attitude. There was no sign of panic, and Dean spoke as if it was normal that he was having an affair. Huh? You're not going to apologize or anything? Or don't you realize you're doing something wrong? We're married, aren't we? I unintentionally accused Dean in a strong tone.
Shut up. That's what I'm trying to say. Can't you see that you're the cause of this?
He headed for the bathtub, but of course I had not heated up the water. No wife would heat up the water in the bath and wait to discuss an affair, right? But Dean came to the living room again.
Why haven't you heated up the water in the bathtub? You can't even do that?
And he blames me. I didn't know what to do anymore. He has no intention of discussing or stopping the affair. There were so many things I wanted to say, but I felt like there was no point in saying them. I couldn't say anything back, and all I could do was cry. I decided to go to my bedroom in silence, crying on my bed, and without me falling asleep, morning came. Dean did not come into the bedroom that night. When I left the bedroom, Dean was already gone in the house. Did he leave in anger? Stunned, I entered the living room and discovered something shocking on the table. There already was a divorce document signed by Dean and a short letter he left behind.
Goodbye. Sign these and send them out.
That was all the letter said. I rushed to contact Dean's phone, but he seemed to refuse my calls, so I couldn't contact him. Is it possible for a couple to quit so easily? Was it wrong that I blamed him? That day I took off work and called my in-laws. However, my in-laws have been calling Dean too, and he is not answering the phone. None of our mutual friends have been able to contact him. I also called Dean's company, and to my surprise, he resigned 2 weeks ago. On second thought, it is also strange to have divorce papers ready in the middle of the night. Perhaps this was planned. As for life after that, I honestly don't remember much. I can no longer listen to the songs of the band I loved so much. I could no longer go to work and took a leave of absence. The emotional scars did not heal easily, and I was unable to leave the house for many months. My mother, who was worried about me, came to my house and agreed to stay with me for a while. 3 years later, I was finally able to return to my normal life. Maybe I can start moving forward again. One day, as I was beginning to feel this way, the phone rang as I was cooking dinner at home. It's a call from an unknown number. Fearfully, I answered the phone and heard Dean's voice, a voice I thought I would never hear again. I was so surprised that I thought my heart would stop. Dean, on the other end of the phone, is now saying these words.
I'll be back tomorrow. Get the hot water ready in the bath.
He said. I couldn't believe it. Has he forgotten about what happened 3 years ago? How the heck is he going to come back and face me? I don't understand. I had a lot to say, but I said, I get it, and hung up the phone. Then the next day, I received another call from Dean.
Hey, what happened to our house? It's our house, right? Explain to me what this is all about.
Dean ranted furiously. Yes, the place where the house we lived used to be is now a construction site. Our house? What are you talking about? That's my house. Oh, I forgot to boil the water in the bath. When I say this, Dean takes his anger out on me even more.
Your husband came home, but what's with that attitude? Where the hell are you?
I'm right behind you. Also, you're not my husband, you're my ex-husband. Dean turned around and there stood me, my in-laws, and my lawyer. Dean panics as he sees us and loses his grip on the phone.
Why the hell are Mom and Dad here?
As Dean tried to run away while saying this, my in-laws and lawyer surrounded Dean.
Mr. Anders, we need to talk to you, so let's have this discussion at the office.
The lawyer said. My in-laws gripped Dean's arm gingerly and started walking. Dean was flailing around, resisting the whole time.
Hey, Mary, what does this mean?
He shouted at me, but I ignored him.
Dad, Mom, you're not on my side?
But my in-laws only looked at Dean with cold eyes. I'm sure they have a lot to say, but they must be holding back until they get to the office. We walked about 5 minutes to the lawyer's office and sat Dean down.
Here are the documents regarding alimony.
The lawyer spoke matter-of-factly about the fees.
I ain't got the money to pay for this crap.
Dean quickly tore up the papers, but soon the lawyer brought out some extra copies on his desk. I guess he had prepared several copies in anticipation of this happening.
You should pay alimony to Mary for cheating on her and causing her emotional distress. Mary's heartbreak cannot be mended with money, but it's the least you can do,
the lawyer said, glaring at Dean.
Don't be silly. We'll just go back to our lives again. What happened to the house in the first place?
Dean ignores the lawyer's words and turns to me and my in-laws to ask. The house is mine. Did you forget all that after 3 years? I don't want the house I spent time in with you anymore, so I've decided to tear it down and turn it into a parking lot. The house where I spent time with Dean originally belonged to my parents, who had acquired the entire lot. My parents gave it to my husband and I, but it was in my name. Dean was kind to me at that time.
You got it from your parents, so it should be in your name.
But I guess he doesn't remember that anymore.
I don't remember that. If you're going to turn it into a parking lot, you're going to split some of that revenue with me, right?
Dean makes demands that make no sense.
Hey, Dean, How long are you going to be so boring? What you did is unforgivable. You're 30 years old, and you aren't even aware of that. You're really a good-for-nothing kind of guy. You don't consider me your son anymore? All you can do is pay the alimony, right? Get on with it and sign the papers. We're cutting you off from us, as of today.
My father-in-law passed down judgment on Dean. Next to me, my mother-in-law is sobbing heavily. Your father is right. The only way left for you is to pay your alimony and be gone from our sight. As I said that, he replied,
I'm sure you were a little glad for me to be back, even though you were lonely and alone. Mary, you don't have to be so tough.
Dean said with sarcasm, but I laughed. Huh? No one here is lonely or happy at all. I never wanted to see your face again for the rest of my life. I'd be glad if I could get you to pay me alimony, though, I said. And now Dean was crying.
Don't say that. Mary, I'm sorry. Let's start over again, he said.
I was dismayed to see Dean. Don't be silly. There's no way I'm going to start over. Back then, you served me those divorce papers right then and there. And besides, I'm already remarried. As I say that,
I'm her husband, Jude.
My lawyer introduced himself. When Dean disappeared, I was too depressed to do anything. It was the friends I met at the meetup where I met Dean who helped me at that time. They came to my house every day and listened to me. One of them introduced me to Jude, my lawyer, and now husband. With Jude, we discussed with our friends whether we should try to locate Dean. Jude advised me that if I wanted a divorce or wanted to file for alimony, then we should look for Dean. I didn't want to start over again. I didn't want to see his face. We agreed that if he showed up someday, we would charge him a huge fee. It was also Jude who advised me to turn the house I lived in with Dean into a parking lot. Jude advised me as a lawyer, but also provided emotional support. After several meals with friends, he and I became friends and decided to go out with each other. And we just got married a few months ago.
Huh? Remarried? So what am I supposed to do?
Dean started ranting like a child. I don't know. You brought this upon yourself. Why don't you just sign the papers and go to your beloved mistress? I said, and Dean threw his hands up in defeat and signed the document begrudgingly.
Come on, can we please just split it up?
Dean looked at me, his voice strained.
No one is going to do you any favors, right? Make sure you pay her on time.
Before I could answer, my father-in-law threatened Dean, and Dean took his bag and ran from the office as if to escape. After Dean was gone, my in-laws bowed deeply and apologized.
Until he pays the alimony properly, I will take the responsibility as a parent. Mary, I am so sorry for the long wait.
Jude then responded.
Now that he has already signed the paperwork, I'll do what I can to make sure he pays. So, thank you for your time today.
Dean gave us the runaround at first, but Jude firmly made him pay in a lump sum. According to Jude, Dean has no savings at all, and he has to make do with a day job to make ends meet. The alimony was paid with a loan. He had been living like a pimp after he left that day. The affair was with a woman who seemed to have very good money, and he was completely spoiled. However, Dean was not willing to work at all, and the woman got fed up with him and kicked him out of the house. Dean, who had not worked for a long time and had no savings, seemed to be walking aimlessly on the street and came up with the idea of coming back to me. He probably thought he could use me in such a convenient way. I think I was able to fight Dean because Jude was next to me, and I am stronger than I was then. After the fee was paid, I blocked any communication from Dean. I don't know what he is doing anymore. Jude and I are enjoying our honeymoon. Jude doesn't say anything if my housework isn't perfect.
It's okay to get better at it, little by little. I'm not very good at housework either, so if anything, you've been doing all the work for me, and I have no excuse,
he'd say. Sometimes we have small fights, but he never raises his voice and listens to me sincerely. Since marrying Jude, I can finally listen to my favorite band again. It seems that Jude had never heard of it, but when he heard the song, he liked it. I will be going to a concert next month with my friends and Jude. I am now spending my days looking forward to that day.